Hello, good morning. Welcome, everyone. So, I am here this morning to present to you as young STEM leaders, and I'm very excited to have been invited to participate in this program. Today, what I'm going to be talking about is smart homes and voice technology. So, these are growing areas of technology, and there are going to be skills that are needed in the future. So I'm going to be telling you a bit about our company and also how you can get involved and learn about smart homes and voice. Let me just move the slides on. Sorry, it's not moving on. There we are. So homes of the future will need skills of the future, and this is you. I'm really hoping that you join this mission to help people access technology in their homes, because it really can transform people's lives. So before we get started, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about myself, because I didn't always work in this field, and I think it's important to see that careers can be very diverse. Sorry, I'm just going to try and get this to go to the next slide. Nope, it's not going. Oh no, there we are. Okay, so I'm actually a chemical engineer by background. So how did I end up running a smart homes company? So I studied chemical engineering at Strathclyde University and then moved up to Aberdeen to work in the oil industry. I worked in the oil industry for 2 decades. And then together with my husband, Thomas, we set up a smart home company in about 2016 we started. And he's an electronic and electrical engineer. So his passion and hobby is creating new technologies. And I decided to join him and build a business together. So I think what I wanted to show with this is that a career doesn't have to be linear, and at any point in time you can follow your interests or the things you're drawn to, and for us in particular it's been about helping people with the technologies, and that gives us a really strong sense of purpose. So what is a smart home? So I wanted to give a few examples here, kind of fun examples. The pictures here, one is our smart doll's house, and the other is maybe an idea for you to look at after today's session, which is using tools like Minecraft or Roblox to create your own smart home creations. So generally the word smart is used for technologies that are connected to the internet. And we sometimes call it IoT, or the Internet of Things. But actually, for something to be smart, it doesn't technically need to be connected to the internet, because it could have a local computer instead, something like a small Raspberry Pi, actually. So if you've used them at school before, we use them in our business. They're very powerful computers for their size. When we think of smart, it's actually about devices kind of being aware of their surroundings and being able to talk to neighboring devices, and maybe using sets of rules or programs to then decide what to do next. So maybe automatically changing settings to suit the environment. So good examples of this are things like temperature control, so measuring temperature and then adjusting the heat settings to suit, so a room doesn't get too hot or cold. Or even looking at things like light levels, so automatically adjusting light to suit. And then even technologies like geolocation. So if you have a mobile phone, you can use geolocation and link it to your smart home so it knows where you are and can do nice things like switching on the lights for you when you come home, or unlocking the door, or opening the garage door for you to put the car into the garage. And really the key to good design is looking at how your space is being used, and then looking for solutions that are helpful, that maybe help save time or make things safer or more efficient, and really tailoring the design to the needs of the people in the space. So there's some ideas for you. Even Lego actually is a really good one, just to come up with ideas of what you might do. And what we're going to do is some activities today. So just before we get into the activities, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the kind of voice side of things. We also call it ambient computing. And by that, all we mean is that you don't actually have to touch an interface, so you can do it in any space. So ambient computing is kind of a growing term in the smart home world. You can also use gestures, so using cameras and motion detectors to be able to pick up different signals and then use that instead of a traditional tablet or screen or keyboard type inputs. In our business, we also develop voice applications. So as well as the hardware side of things and putting technology in people's houses, we create software. So we have a voice application called KindSpace, which we created during lockdown to help people with issues like loneliness and anxiety. And as we were at home and, trying to keep ourselves safe, we were really acutely aware of some of the issues that would stem from that. So voice applications are a wonderful way of helping people in the home and a really big growing area in technology. And then just to frame things just a little bit more before we get into our activity, I wanted to talk about healthy aging. There is a lot of the work that we do is supporting people who are older, but unfortunately there's a lot of stigma around growing older. People think older people are technology averse, when in fact actually it's because things generally aren't designed very well for their needs. So making technology accessible is a really important topic and is actually one of the government's grand challenges. So they have a big emphasis and have put a fund together to encourage technology companies like ours to look for solutions that help to address people's needs as they get older. It's a tricky one because technology has allowed us to live longer, but unfortunately, as we age, our bodies weren't designed to last this long. So it brings about additional issues with people's mobility, their cognitive health, so their brain health. And we're seeing more and more instances of things like dementia. And that can make our quality of life quite challenging. So it's thinking about how can we use technology that allows us to live the best life possible whilst we're living with potentially more complex health conditions. So let's have a look at our smart home and how we might be able to design things. So we like to use a technique called design thinking or user-centered design. And when we're doing this, it's really important to think about the person, what life is like for them, maybe interview people in those situations to find out what the things are that they struggle with. So we're going to have a think just now about how life might be for you if you had a disability or you were older. And as we're going through these thoughts, we are actually going to map out some ideas on a Jamboard with post-it notes. And my lovely helpers on the other end of the screen are going to collate your ideas through the Mentee quiz. So the Mentee quiz, you'll be able to kind of put in some ideas and then we're going to place them onto our smart home design. So you're essentially my new employees. So welcome to Team TL Tech. So let's imagine we're building a new house. And as I said, we're thinking about someone who maybe has a disability, or maybe it's even someone who, maybe they've had an accident and they've broken their leg. So you're just thinking about things that for you, you might find more difficult. So if you were in a wheelchair or if you had poor memory, what things might help you in those sorts of scenarios? Don't overcomplicate it. Often I say that the best ideas are the simple ones. And in fact, starting at a simple level and testing it out is far better than designing something really complex that doesn't actually meet the needs of the user. So building at a simple level, get people to test out, get feedback, and then build from there. So that experimentation, I think, is really, really important. So let's so we're going to have a go at answering the questions in Menti. There's a little QR code for you to scan, and we will take your ideas and we'll see where we might incorporate them into the home design. So as I said, just thinking about what might help, thinking about the space. So, you know, in the bedroom space, in the kitchen space, in the living room, what sorts of things might help? You might already have some smart home technology in your house. So if you have those sorts of technologies, how do you use them and how do they help you? And if you pop in some ideas, then we'll get started planning out our design. So there's our little layout there. So you see we've got like a living space, kind of open plan kitchen dining, a little courtyard space. There's the bedroom. There's a nice big accessible bathroom space, a little office, a little utility sort of area. So if this was your house, what sorts of things would you like to include in it? And to help me get started, I did pop a couple of ideas that we could discuss together. And then we'll add in your ideas as we go from the Menti questions. So what have we got on here already? Let's start with thinking about answering the door. This one's actually a really interesting one. So a lot of people have Ring doorbells. So yeah, you're probably going to put that near your front door. And they're really useful to be able to receive packages when you're not at home. But for someone who is maybe has less mobility, it's a really nice way for you to greet someone at the door and let them know, you know, the door's open, you can come in, that sort of thing. But that said, as a person ages and their mobility is declining, you still want to encourage people to be moving around and doing things like answering the door. So there's a fine balance between putting in technology that helps people and then technology that maybe makes them, I don't want to use the word lazy, but you know, there's a fine balance between, you know, making it really easy for someone to switch on and off the lights from their chair, and then them actually having, you know, to go and do that, and that actually being a part of their daily exercise. So a Ring doorbell is a super handy one. From a security point of view as well, it's very good. The robot vacuum cleaner, we were just saying before the call, I would love to have one of these, but the design of my house doesn't really lend it to having one. But if you were someone who struggled with the housework, then they are really handy. This design is lovely and open, so our robot vacuum cleaner is going to be able to get to all of these surfaces because it's a nice hard floor. And as I say, it's like a nice open design. So the robot vacuum cleaner is great. They're set up so they're pretty much plug and play. They will scan the space, and then they decide based on how much battery life they have, what their routine will be. Oh, we've got one here popped in. Alexa to play music and set timers. So where was my smart speaker? Yeah, so I think we probably would need multiple of these little post-it notes for our Alexa device. They're really handy to have across different rooms because you can use them a bit like an intercom and speak to people in different rooms. If you need any help with anything, then they're really handy to be able to communicate with other people, even outside of the home. So you can do video calls on the ones with the screens. What else have we got? Smart light bulbs. Did I have that on here? Nope. Will we pop that in? Oh, I did not do that right. So our smart light bulbs are really handy to, it's very hard to do this on this screen. Thank you. So that's like, again, a bit like the Alexa speaker, something that we probably have across all of the rooms in the house, and we can automate them in different ways. So we could have a smart light bulb that is controlled by looking at the light levels, so it only comes on when it's needed. We can have ones that have motion detectors, again, so they only come on when they need them. In some use cases, what we can do, like in the bedroom, we could have a little pressure sensor at the side of the bed on the floor, so that when someone gets up to go to the toilet in the middle of the night, it can pop on a little night light to help guide someone through to the bathroom and make it safer for them. Oh, we've got a bed that moves up and down popped into the ideas here. Yeah, so something that helps with people who require care and maybe need that to be able to get dressed or things like that in the morning. So it just makes it a little bit easier for them to get out of bed. That's a really good one. Shall we pop that one in the bedroom as well? So oops. Never type live. Does not want to go back. Okay, so we're going to pop this one in the bedroom. We're going to end up with so many ideas that it's going to be a bit tricky to see, but that's okay. Here we are, reminder to turn the stove and the sockets off. So safety in the kitchen, gosh, that's a really good one. So I was once told a story, it was actually by the car mechanic that was fixing my car, and his neighbor, he was coming home one day and he heard the fire alarm and he was like, oh, is that coming from my neighbor's house? And his neighbor was an elderly lady, and he went to investigate, and unfortunately the lady had collapsed whilst she was making stuff on the stove, and it had set off the smoke alarm. But actually that was kind of a blessing, because it raised the alarm that something was wrong. And unfortunately she'd had a stroke, and it did have a big impact on him, because he was thinking, well, how long might she have been there before I realized and went to go and get help. So yes, turning off the stove and having a smart home that's clever and knows when something's out of place, like, has the stove been on for too long? Has someone left it on by accident? So let's pop a stove, let's just call it a monitor. And we could call it remote control as well, because being able to switch things off from outside of the house can be useful. So if you think of a family member in that sort of situation, they might get a notification that says, oh, mum's had the stove on for an hour. Then you can maybe switch off from your own house just by going on your mobile phone. Oh, sprinklers in the garden, that's a really good one. Yes. There are some really nice new technologies coming out that look at the soil and the moisture in the soil, so that then you're only watering things when they actually need watered. So then that helps with water conservation. So we could imagine our person in this house, they've maybe got some nice, oh, they do have a nice little plant pot there. I love that. That's Alexa telling me that my washing machine's finished. That was quite good timing, wasn't it? So we have an energy monitor on the plug for the washing machine, so that when the washing machine has gone through its cycle, then the automation lets us know, and then we can go and empty the washing machine. What else have we got? A smart TV. Yes, smart TVs are brilliant. Does this house, I think this house probably does have a TV on this wall, doesn't it? And I think for a lot of people, a smart TV is perhaps their very first smart purchase. A lot of smart TVs are coming now with the voice assistant, like your Alexa kind of built into it. So the Fire TVs have the Alexa capability, which works just like the Alexa smart speakers, and you can do video calls and things like that. What else do we say here? We have YSLP make things like that with microbits. Yes, lovely. What other ideas did we have? An automatic curtain opener. Will we pop that one maybe in the bedroom? So for some people, waking up in the morning can be quite a struggle. But having something that maybe opens the blinds just a little bit at a time to let the light in gradually can be a really nice way to wake up, and can really help with people who struggle in the morning. And even just the physical aspect of being able to get up and reach the curtains or the blind controls can sometimes be difficult. So that's a really handy one. Let's talk about one of the more unusual ones. Oh, the smart fire alarm. We should have probably popped that in when we were talking about stove stuff. So smart fire alarms, if they're connected to the Internet of Things, it allows you to be able to get help quicker, so you can have that notification go to a phone, and then you can deal with the issue much quicker. Toilet flush sensor. So we work with a housing association, and we help to put in a lot of these sorts of things. And we also put in these toilet flush sensors. And actually what's very powerful about something like this is it can help to indicate if there's a health condition, like a urinary tract infection or something like that. So if someone is actually visiting the toilet more than they usually would, then you're able to have a conversation about how are they feeling and are they okay. Some people might feel that that's a bit intrusive, but we have found that it's actually identified issues far earlier than they otherwise would have been identified, and it's allowed the person to get antibiotics and medication to help them feel better. So yeah, so that's a really interesting one. And maybe in the future we might have toilets that actually analyze our waste products to monitor more things. So they might be able to tell us more about how our bodies are functioning, and then tailor our treatments. So if we are getting medical support, tailor the treatments accordingly. So it might sound a bit gross, but actually there could be some smart use cases with that sort of technology. What else has been popping in here? Smart heating systems. Yeah, so we did talk about that in the introduction, didn't we? So we put in smart heating. And again, that's applicable across the whole house. So it makes sure that the house is kept at a comfortable temperature. So, or you maybe have a health condition, you would feel much more comfortable at a set temperature. You wouldn't want the house to get too cold. So I'm going to pop that in the middle there. And sometimes for people, the heating controls can be one of the hardest things to get set up. So I don't know if anyone's ever tried to set their own heating timers. It can be quite complicated on I was going to call them traditional systems. So on your boiler system, you almost need an engineering degree to do that. So having an automated system that looks at the temperature throughout the home and then adjusts it as needed is ideal for everybody. So I think we'll see more and more of that in people's houses, won't we? And then the next one is a smart meter. So the government have been encouraging us to install smart meters as a way to help with energy efficiency. So if you're more aware of what you're using in your home, it can make you more mindful of switching things off. And now with money being an issue, it's helping us to be more in control of what we spend. So smart meters are very helpful. So your smart meter might sit in the hallway somewhere, or maybe in the kitchen. Ours is in the kitchen. I quite like to look at it periodically in the kitchen, so let's pop it in there. Our kitchen's getting busy. We pop this smart kettle in as well. So a smart kettle is a really empowering one. So one of the people that we supported at the Housing Association when we organised some of the tech and things for them, we put in different smart plugs and things like that. And actually it was almost quite emotional, because he basically was like, I've never made a cup of tea for myself before. I've always had to get someone else to do it for me. And something as simple as that just had such a huge impact for him, to just feel like he had that agency and autonomy. So he was like, I'm empowered. I can do a lot of things now for myself that I couldn't do before. So something as simple as making a cup of tea is really life-changing, which is incredible, isn't it? We have one more here, motion detectors. So motion detectors by themselves don't necessarily do anything, but you can use them to trigger other things. So like I was saying before with the lights, that kind of thing. They're also very good, and we've been using them in the Housing Association to start to understand people's daily habits of living. So over time, you can build a picture that will tell you if there's any significant changes. So if someone's getting perhaps slower at moving from one end of the house to the other, then that could indicate that they maybe need some physiotherapy or some other support. If they're staying in one room, is that because they're having issues with paying the bills? So maybe they're only heating one area of the home, and they're not moving around the home as much. It can give you a lot of clues as to how someone is doing, and then also helps to make life easier by automating things like the light and the heating and these sorts of things. And if there was to be a major crisis, an issue where someone has a fall or something like that, then the motion detectors are one of the first ways that we would be able to pick that up potentially. Yes. So we've got quite a few different ideas here. And actually, the wonderful thing about this is these are all things that are available today. I think the thing that really is a barrier, or there's a few barriers. One is, the cost can mount up. So, we've put quite a few things in here, a robot vacuum cleaner. A lot of these things aren't cheap. So cost is a barrier. And then also there's the complexity to installing all of this stuff and getting it to actually talk to each other. So setting up the programs that trigger, so the motion detectors that trigger the lights. And that's where specialists like us come in. So we can help advise people what technologies will work, and then help to install them to get everything working as best as possible. So that can be a big barrier. Quite often when we speak to customers, they will have, they may have purchased a few things, and they'll have lots of different apps now in their mobile phone. And because all of these technologies are built by different companies, so you might have Samsung stuff and Apple stuff and Philips light bulbs and your Alexa, they're all built by different companies and they all have different layouts or interfaces. So when you go onto your mobile phone to try and program things or check on things, then you're having to learn lots of different layouts and different terminology. So each smart home technology, they don't all call things the same thing. So from a customer's point of view, it's very difficult. And that's where people like us come in. And that's why there's a growing need for experts to help consumers and to level the playing field as well. So like I said, with the cost being so prohibitive, sometimes people are buying things that aren't they're not the right fit for them in terms of their needs and their home and their lifestyle, and that can put them off. So we are really passionate about helping people to navigate this this new space and making them feel confident in using it. I guess this maybe is a good segue into discussing things like security. So a lot of the questions we are asked by customers is around their data and the privacy in the home and feeling like they're being supported. So supported but not spied on. It is a very fine balance. So the security side of things, that's another reason why we need these sorts of skills to help keep all this data secure and make sure that the individual in the home feels comfortable and they can access their data, they can delete their data if they want to. Cool. So that is wonderful. And I'm so happy to have had you help me with that exercise because there's some really fab ideas in there. Right. So I have one more slide and then we can move into questions. So in our business, we have two kind of main skill sets. So we have the Internet of Things engineering side of things, and then we have the voice application designer side of things, which is a bit more creative. So today we were kind of focusing on how the skills that an engineer will use to design home environments. And that's a mix of understanding the hardware and the electronics and all the wiring and the software and programming. So backgrounds in things like electronics and electrical engineering, computer science, they're the sort of perfect starting points if you were interested in that side of things. And then on the voice application side of things, there's a lot of diversity actually. So having a background in things like computer science is good, but you could also equally come from a background of languages or marketing or psychology, or even something creative like music. So music technology, audio technology, these sorts of things. So if you do like computers and coding, then I think this could be a really interesting area to explore. If you're good at communicating complex information in a simple and understandable way, and you have a real empathy for people, and you want to connect and help other people, then I think it's a really good career opportunity. And as I said at the outset, there's no one right path. We've ended up doing this having come from careers in the oil and gas industry. And when it comes to these sorts of technologies, because they're so new, there aren't necessarily university courses that directly would put you on a path to becoming a voice application developer or an IoT engineer. So a lot of that learning we've done by using online resources and then applying them on the job, and that experimentation and finding out what works. So yes, so if anyone did have any questions and wanted to know more about how to get started, I would be more than happy to answer those questions. Brilliant. And then you'll see on the screen there, we've got our QR code now that we can move into question time. Oh, and then the other thing I was going to say actually was that I've covered a lot of things and maybe inspired you to investigate more. So I did pass on some resources that you would perhaps want to look at in your own time. So one was a word search all about the Internet of Things. And then the other was a design exercise like the one that we just went through, where we're thinking about how might we create a space that is accessible and meets certain requirements around someone's needs. Great. So we have one question popped in. It says, what are some of the most important skills that will be needed for future careers? So definitely the coding side of things, but with the caveat of I don't actually code. So I have an understanding of how the technology works, but my role is more around that human connection piece and really understanding what we should be building and not necessarily how we build it. So data science again, I think is another really important one. So I talked about how the technology can, by putting these sorts of smart sensors into someone's home, it can start to build a picture as to how someone's doing. So that's where the data science comes in, by looking at that data and drawing insights from it. So insights that we can take action on. And I think what's really interesting about how these technologies can be used is it allows us to be proactive instead of reactive. So instead of having the traditional systems, which are more about like panic button alarms, where a situation's already escalated, we can be much more proactive. So those skills, I think, are going to be really, really important. Yes, what else? What's your favorite thing about your job? Oh gosh, do you know, I love what I do now, and one of the things I love the most actually is these sorts of things where I can share what I do and inspire other people to consider STEM careers. I now actually really love how creative I can be. So when I worked in the oil and gas industry, it's a very controlled system in that there's safety consequences to, if you design something wrong, you can hurt a lot of people because what you're dealing with is hazardous materials. So you have to follow rules very, very strictly, and there's a set way that you do things. So when you're designing something new, you follow the recipe, and then the thing gets built. Whereas with the smart home world, every single one of our customers is unique. So every single one of our projects, we don't just say, here's a thing off the shelf that'll work. We actually don't know. We have to experiment and we have to be creative, and we're trying to do things that are affordable as well. So we don't just pick the thing off the shelf, because actually that might be too expensive for our customers. So then we have to be creative about, well, can we give them a solution that does a similar thing, but is more affordable for them? So I love that creativity. It's problem solving, isn't it? So yeah, having the ability to use that skill, I really enjoy. What's been your favorite bit of smart tech to work on? So here's a little story for you. When I was 4, well, that's probably as far back as I can remember, I was obsessed by singing, and honestly, I just would sing everywhere, and to the point where people were like, oh my goodness, this girl is always singing. And now creating voice experiences, I get to use that creativity and that skill. And within voice, there's a special thing called a sonic brand. So your sonic brand is what your logo sounds like. So when you go to the shops and McDonald's has a logo, the banks have a logo, everyone has a logo. But in voice, you have to have a sound that is your logo. So I think that has been my favorite thing to create in our smart tech business is our special sound, which is a sonic brand. And it's been an amazing journey to learn about this industry, you know, having come from outside of it, and and be more creative. Awesome. Don't know if there's any more questions. Oh, another recommendation for you, actually, if you are interested and close enough to travel to Dundee, the V&A Museum has an exhibition on at the moment, specifically about the future of healthy aging. So when I was presenting about healthy aging and some of the challenges ahead, and obviously the government has invested funding into us, companies like us investigating and coming up with solutions, there is a really lovely exhibition on at the V&A specifically on that topic, and it's got some really powerful exhibits and kind of interactive stuff that you can go and immerse yourself in. Okay, so we've got one last question here. It says, what will you be working on next? Oh, we have so many exciting things. I'm actually off to Canada in just over a week to go to some of the specialist research institutions, so the universities that specialise in artificial intelligence. So that's a new area for our business, is looking at how we can use artificial intelligence within our voice technology. So that's happening in just over a week. We also have a new project for a charity. So we're building a voice application for them, which I'm really excited about. We potentially have another voice application with a digital theatre company creating a choose your own adventure story, which I'm really excited about, because that's going to be really creative and something a bit different. So honestly, we have so much going on. It's a really exciting space. I like to think that the space we're in, the reason why it's so magical is that there's use cases for these technologies that haven't even been invented yet. And really the limit is our imagination. And by going and speaking to as many people as possible about it, you know, we're only going to be growing and you know, discovering together even more. So I'm really excited about what's going to happen next in the smart home and voice space. Okay, so I think we're good with questions. I would love to thank everyone for all the interaction. It was a little bit tricky, but we got there. And thank you to the Young STEM leaders for inviting me to speak. And I wish everyone all the best and huge success in your future studies and whatever you decide to do next. Thank you so much.